The law is simple here: eat or vanish. Wind knives across the cliff, and the world holds its breath. Astra banks hard, a dark arrow hurled by hunger. Morgan said, "Hold the frame, she's diving." The city below glitters like broken shells. A pigeon flares too late, feathers explode like ash. Astra strikes, talons locking, gravity roaring approval. Sable said, "Remember the updraft line." The cliff face surges past, stone wet with morning fog. Pip peeps from the ledge, a bright thorn of need. Vex circles wider, counting chances with cold eyes. Morgan said, "She has it, but can she keep it?" The sky grows mean as a storm builds its fist. Rex rides a distant thermal, a shadow with patience. Astra climbs, prey clenched, blood bright against slate air. The ledge is near, the danger nearer still. Sable said, "Land fast, feed faster." The wind shifts, a promise and a threat in one breath. Silence crashes after the strike, the kind that makes hearts fidget. Astra stalls and pivots toward the ledge, every muscle carved by wind. Morgan said, "Bring it home, girl." The storm licks salt off the cliff and grins. Sable watches the sky like a chessboard, counting pieces that move too fast. Pip's hunger is a lit fuse. Vex drifts closer, pretending indifference, measuring distances like a thief. The ocean lifts and drops the world in heavy breaths. Morgan said, pressure rising, watch the gusts. The ledge is a coin flip between feast and loss. Feathers cling to wet rock like confessions. Astra's path narrows into a single thread of air. The ridge where Rex loiters becomes a throne carved from weather. Sable said, "No second chances in a storm." Lightning stutters, then swallows its tongue. Time stretches thin enough to tear. Astra drops a meter, then claws for lift, talons refusing to surrender. Morgan said, "She's heavy on the climb." The storm answers by shouldering her sideways. Pip squeals, a spark thrown into rain. Sable said, "Trim the angle, ride the seam." Vex twitches, tempted by chaos, eyes bright with stolen dreams. The city yawns beyond, indifferent and glittering. Spray freckles the lens, the world tastes of iron. Astra threads between gusts, a needle stitching life to ledge. The pigeon kicks, and the air turns messy. Morgan said, "Stabilize, stabilize." Rocks rush up like teeth. Sable shifts, a calm hinge against panic. The cliff takes a deeper breath and waits for the ending. For a heartbeat, everything aligns, and the air forgives. Astra levels, feathers sleeked by speed. Morgan said, "Now, now, now." Sable steps toward the rim, talons precise, eyes lit with old lessons. Pip's call rises like a siren. Vex slices closer, a rumor made flesh. The storm loosens one cruel laugh and shoves. Astra dips, then surges, the ledge a heartbeat away. Stone glistens with torn feathers and rain. Morgan said, "Frame the landing." Sable said, "Stay sharp." The ocean hammers the cliff in applause and threat. A dark wing flickers on the far ridge, silent and sure. The moment is a blade balanced on wind. Astra lands hard, talons clicking stone like flint. Pip surges toward the prize, a small storm of need. Sable said, "Shield and feed." Morgan said, "We have contact." Vex hangs at the edge, calculating the price of boldness. The wind tugs at the prey, jealous and loud. Astra spreads her wings into a living wall. Feathers whisper, then flatten to armor. Pip squeaks, beak tapping at fate. The storm eyes them with theatrical patience. Nilbug. On the ridge, Rex lifts off without hurry. Morgan said, "New contact incoming." Sable does not look away from the sky. The ledge shrinks to the size of a heartbeat. Nature speaks again, colder than before. Morning limps in, and the cliff smells of rain and iron. Astra folds her tired wings, guarding the kill like a vow. Sable said, small pieces first, keep the heat in him. Pip quivers at the rim, a candle flame in the wind. Morgan said, low light, steady hands, and his breath ghosts the glass. Vex hangs beyond the spray, pretending he is only weather. The storm has drifted east, but its teeth linger in the air. Astra tears, then pauses, listening to the sky's quiet lies. Sable, said Share with care, watch the shadows. Pip swallows, eyes widening at the bright taste of life. The ocean counts seconds with slow fists against stone. Morgan said, this is the heart of it, and the camera hums like a hive. Somewhere far off, a ridge remembers a larger shadow. The ledge tightens around them, as if the world is shrinking by choice. Astra feeds Pip in quick cuts, each bite a counted mercy. Sable said, leave margin for the next hour. Morgan said, focus shift, beak to eyes to horizon. The city glitters behind them like a lie that never ends. Vex drifts nearer, casual as a rumor with teeth. Pip chirps between gulps, learning the shape of hunger. Astra leans to shield, eyes reading wind like scripture. Sable, said, balance him, keep the crop light. The ledge rattles when a deep wave breaks, then steadies again. Morgan said, sound up, let the ocean speak. A lull settles, but it has the weight of a loaded silence. The cliff seems to breathe with them, and with something that is not them at all. The air warms and smells faintly of kelp and rust. Morgan said, we mark the moment he steadies. Pip peeps softer now, a small metronome of life. Sable, said, teach him the wind, not just the meat. Astra lifts, then drops a feather for him to taste. Vex slides into the open like a question with one answer. The ocean's color deepens, turning from steel to bruised jade. Morgan said, he's pushing range. Note the angle. Astra stands taller, a quiet wall made of resolve. Pip waddles 2 steps, then freezes at the void's whisper. Sable, said, every ledge remembers a fall. The sky is clean, but the memory of thunder sits behind it like a judge. Shadows shorten and patience thins. Vex flares once, then feigns disinterest, but his eyes count spoils. Morgan said, behavior shift, tag it. Astra pivots, shoulder to the wind, daring him without a sound. Pip hiccups and settles, warm with first lessons. Sable, said, hold the line, no chase you can't win. The cliff sheds droplets that glitter like broken glass. Far out, a dark marker moves where the ridge meets sky. Morgan said, profile that distant bird. Astra returns to guard the remaining meat, unblinking. Vex drifts to lee, practicing innocence. The world narrows to angles, thermals, and the cost of mistakes. Sable, said, strength is timing, not fury. Calm arrives thin as paper, and everyone pretends to trust it. Morgan said, we log a stable window. Astra softens, touching Pip's crown with a brief, fierce gentleness. Sable, said, memory first, then muscle. Vex backs off, but he leaves his want hanging in the air. The ocean flattens, as if listening for hooves in the sky. Pip dozes, dreaming the sound of wings he has not yet grown. Astra stares past the horizon, measuring debts that hunger keeps. Morgan said, if this were enough, stories would end here. Sable breathes out, and the world copies her. Somewhere, the ridge scrapes its shadow free. The anchor holds, but the chain ticks softly in the wind. Hunger returns like debt with teeth, and the ledge feels smaller than breath. Astra tests the air and finds it tilting toward trouble. Sable, said, take the narrow line and return with margin. Pip chatters, oblivious to math that kills the slow. Morgan said, barometer falling again, wind shear incoming. Vex drifts high, feigning calm, eyes bright with arithmetic. The ocean darkens a shade, as if someone lowered the sun by hand. Astra lifts into a sky that smells of rust and static. Neem, Sable said, if he follows, pull him wide and waste his fuel. Morgan said, rolling on a long take, stay with her. Pip peeks over the brink, drawn by distance he cannot measure. The cliff gathers its wet muscles and waits. Vex leans on a gust and slides after her with quiet greed. Astra slices toward the city's glitter, a single decision dressed as speed. The ridge broods, holding a silence big enough to hide a crown. Sable said, bring back clean meat or bring back nothing. Wind punches sideways, and the city turns into a tilted chessboard. Astra darts along a seam where gusts cancel for a breath. Morgan said, she's reading microliths, stay wide on focus. Vex cuts the corner, saving seconds, spending caution. Sable said, he wants the intercept, show him a door that exits to nowhere. Pip squeaks, a small bell, in a storm cathedral. The ocean lifts like a chest, inhaling before a shout. Pigeons billow from an eve and mistake distance for safety. Astra chooses one, and becomes geometry sharpened by hunger. Vex dives, not for prey, but for her shadow. Morgan said, mark the crossing vector, two bodies converging. Rain freckles the lens and the world tastes of tin. Sable holds the horizon in her eyes, and names every threat. The cliff fades to a rumor behind froth and noise. Astra closes, talons ready, breath a metronome against panic. Vex smiles the way a knife smiles. Contact comes loud as silence breaking, and feathers explode like frost. Astra locks the hit and turns the fall into a climb. Vex snaps at her wake, tasting the meal by scent and envy. Morgan said, she's heavy again. Track the recovery arc. The wind withdraws its promise and returns with interest. Sable said, spend height, not blood. Pips calls thin and fray, tugging at decisions from far away. Astra leans into a narrow updraft carved by glass and heat. Vex flares, then slashes, betting on her fatigue. The ocean hammers punctuation into every second below. Morgan said, 2 meters separation, risk rising. Astra feints left and finds a blue slit of quiet air. Vex commits, and finds only churn and drag waiting. Sable said, he bleeds time, make him pay. The city watches like a jury with mirrored eyes. Astra clears the roofline with prey, alive and future louder than fear. Altitude runs out faster than courage, and the cliff leaps toward them. Astra angles for the ledge and counts breaths in hard numbers. Vex crowds her shoulder, masking hunger as competition. Morgan said, edge frame left, give her sky to land. Sable said, hold the rim. If he dives, break him on the rock. Pip trembles with hope that has not learned to be careful. The wind drags a long wet sleeve across stone. Astra drops, then lifts, drawing a line sharp enough to cut weather. Vex commits to the inside and loses speed. He cannot bill back. Morgan said, she's got path. Watch wake turbulence. Sable steps forward, authority made of scar and patience. The ocean slaps the cliff like a referee with no rulebook. Vex flails a wingtip and surrenders a meter. Astra sees the opening and widens it with will. The ledge is a door, and she arrives with it already unlocked. Landing is hard and honest, and the meat hits stone like truth. Astra mantles wide, owning space with breath and bone. Vex checks his pride against the price list and backs into wind. Morgan said, we hold. This is survival paid in seconds. Sable said, feed him thin, keep her flight in tomorrow. Pip pecks, joy spilling without breaks. The cliff exhales, but the air tastes of someone else arriving. Far off, the ridge folds and unfolds, a monarch testing old robes. Astra freezes, eyes finding a shape that steals heat from light. Vex shivers not from cold, but from ranking on a larger scale. Morgan said, large raptor at distance, confirmed species. Sable lowers her head, and does not blink. The ocean pauses, then resumes, slower, heavier, older. Pip cheeps, unaware of history clearing its throat. Astra tightens over the kill as the sky grows deliberate. Nature adjusts the board and waits for a bigger shadow. The sky opens like a curtain and shows its trick. Rex does not wander. He reads the cliff the way thieves read doors. Morgan said, Golden eagles hunt hunters when cliffs pinch flight. Sable does not flinch, but memory gathers behind her eyes. Pip chirps, happy in a world that hasn't told him the bill. Vex prowls the wind, small storm with a ledger. Astra studies the ridge and learns a colder map. But the cliff is not home. It is a stage that edits the week. Morgan said, thermals stack from the city at noon, straight to him. The ocean marks the timing with a long, strict breath. Sable, said he waits for weight in our talons. The truth tastes like iron and old rain. Vex drifts closer, wearing innocence like a mask he forgot to remove. Rex lifts, testing the seam where updraft fattens into lift. Astra steadies, and the day steadies with her. Nature shrugs and says the rules were always here. Vex shows his other face, and the twist clicks into place. He shadows Astra not to steal, but to flag her for the monarch. Morgan said, kleptoparasite behavior, recorded in urban raptors. Sable said he trades safety for scraps. Pip peeps, counting only warmth. Astra lowers her crown, understanding the price of being seen. Vex cuts a lazy arc that screams location in a language of wings. The ridge answers with a slow imperial glide. The city feeds this game with heat and concrete ledges. Morgan said, if Rex dives, Vex cleans the plate. The betrayal is not personal, it is arithmetic with feathers. Sable spreads a fraction wider, shadowing Pip with old skill. The cliff becomes a ledger where every motion is debt or credit. Astra lifts the kill, and the wind writes her name in bolder strokes. Vex smiles again, thin as a wire. Hidden truth sits in the air like scaffolding. Warm streets build a vertical river that lifts hunters and judges alike. Morgan said, urban thermals create a conveyor to the ridge. The cliff is a funnel, and Astra is caught at its throat. Sable said, he will own the center. We must live at the edge. Pip reaches for a feather and finds silence instead. Vex hangs where the airflow fattens, carving lazy eights. Rex rides the spine of rising heat and grows larger without haste. The ocean flattens as if listening for verdict. Morgan said, this is not chance. It is design without a designer. The city's windows flash like beacons to a code they did not mean to write. Astra tests exits and finds doors that open into wind and teeth. Sable shifts one talon, and the ledge remembers older stories. The day feels engineered by accident. The board resets itself and favors the crown. Compassion kicks in where fear used to live. Rex is not a villain, he is a father with a ledger burning red. Morgan said, 2 eaglets on the ridge nest, both underfed. Sable hears that and does not soften, but she understands the shape. Pip blinks, and the future blinks back. Astra watches Rex and sees her own hours reflected. Vex pauses, surprised by the mirror no one ordered. The ridge keeps its secrets, but hunger is not one of them. Morgan said storms stripped their valley, carrion washed out. The ocean nods, dragging weed across stone like a slow pen. Sable said need binds enemies tighter than love. Rex tilts and shows the weight of his house in the air. Astra lowers the prey and raises her guard. The story rewrites itself without changing a word. Nature is not cruel, it is exact. The pivot completes, and the air hardens around choice. Rex commits to a long, regal descent that refuses drama. Morgan said, he'll take the handoff if she lifts wrong. Sable said, I will move first if I must. Pip stirs, warm and unprepared for math. Vex edges the lane that leads scavengers to news. Astra squares to the wind and the ledge shrinks to a blade. The ridge gathers itself and throws a king at their door. The ocean hushes like a crowd before a verdict. Morgan said, mark all angles, this is the hinge. Sable leans, a lesson wrapped in bone and scar. Rex widens, then narrows, the horizon bending around him. Astra's eyes sharpen into a choice that costs either way. Pip peeps, stitching hope to noise. Nature erases the soft lines and redraws them in stone. The cliff locks its jaw, and every gust becomes a verdict. Astra edges the prey toward Pip, then turns to face the falling crown. Sable said, I take the first cut, guard the second. Morgan said, speed coming high, brace the frame. Vex hovers like a rumor waiting to be true. The air tightens until it hums. Rex narrows, a bronze storm wrapped in silence. Pip peeps, sewing hope into noise with little stitches. Astra flares and drags the wind across her shoulders. Sable steps out, a hinge where courage swings. Morgan said, contact in 3, 2. The ocean rises to watch and forget. Rex does not blink, kings do not need to. Astra chooses the lane that hurts less, and still hurts. Sable said, take me, not him. Vex twitches, arithmetic flashing behind his eyes. The ledge shrinks until it can hold only truth. Gravity licks its lips and waits for the spill. Impact is a language older than names. Rex hits the ledge edge, wind detonating around bone and feather. Sable meets him with a sharp, deliberate slash, turning power sideways. Morgan said, deflection, hold on her. Astra lunges, dragging the kill clear of the crown's reach. Pip freezes, a small prayer with eyes. Vex dives late, gambling for whatever falls. The world becomes edges, sparks, and breath counted in halves. Sable rides the recoil and snaps back to guard. Rex swerves, talons cleaving air where life was. Morgan said, seconds matter. Keep the horizon level. The cliff leans in, greedy for tribute. Astra shoves the meat to the shadow where Pip waits. Sable said, feed and forget fear. Rex wheels for a second pass, quiet as a held note. Vex grins at the arithmetic of crumbs. The ocean slaps applause and malice in equal hands. Unequal hands. Air shreds into threads, and Astra stitches a corridor through them. Rex rotates, trading altitude for angle. Sable said, hold him off the wall. Morgan said, he's resetting vector, watch crosswind. Pip swallows and finds courage heavy and warm. Vex flares to poach, then breaks, sniffing risk. Astra throws a feint, wings cupping a pocket of quiet. Rex commits, reading hunger like scripture. Sable climbs a body length and draws the strike away. Morgan said, she's spending muscle, mark the cost. The cliff remembers every feather that ever missed. Pip chirps, and the sound cuts cleaner than fear. Astra drops the prey to stone and mantles wide. Sable said, take his eyes, not his pride. Rex sweeps past, robbed of inches, not honor. Vex snaps at a stray feather, dignity measured in dust. The ocean inhales and refuses to exhale. The climb back hurts, and that is how you know it matters. Sable wavers, then steadies with old math. Morgan said, heart rate spiking, she's near the edge. Rex circles wider, choosing patience over rage. Astra tilts and peels a strip of sky to share with Pip. Vex tests a root behind her shoulder and meets a wall of air. Sable said, I can still buy seconds. Pip eats in small determined bites, each one a promise kept. The wind slackens, then kicks, then lies. Rex tucks a little, and the horizon bends toward him. Morgan said, second stoop incoming, hold fast. Astra pulls tight and makes herself larger than she is. Sable drifts into the lane and signs her name with feather and grit. Vex abandons subtlety and dives for fallout. The cliff decides it will keep who earns keeping. The final pass arrives without music. Rex dives, a bronze verdict trimmed to silence. Sable rises one more time and spends what she has left. Morgan said, this is the moment. Do not blink. Astra explodes upward, splitting the lane, forcing choice. Pip squeals, voice thin and bright as wire. Vex commits to theft and finds only wind and warning. Rex shaves stone and lifts, denied by inches and will. Sable falls through turbulence, then catches, ragged but unbroken. Morgan said, clear, clear, clear. Astra lands, trembling, and shoves meat to Pip with fierce economy. The ledge holds. The ocean exhales the breath it hoarded. Rex wheels once, measuring loss against mouths that wait. Vex skims off, dignity scuffed, future postponed. Sable, said live to pay tomorrow's price. Nature signs the receipt and closes its book for now. The storm's mouth closes, and what remains is weight. Astra breathes in small, efficient sips, guarding the scraps that bought this hour. Sable, said he eats, then we heal. Pip chews with the solemn focus of the save. Morgan said, silence sells the truth better than music. The ocean combs its hair flat and pretends it never raged. Vex lingers beyond the rim, dignity patched with distance. Rex has gone to the ridge, carrying hunger and a house on his back. Sable, said we kept the line today. Astra does not answer, her eyes are receipts and futures. Pip chirps softer now, a thread stitching ledge to tomorrow. Morgan said, document the stillness. It's the other half of pain. The cliff tastes of iron, salt, and lessons that cost feathers. Nature settles its ledgers, and leaves a blank space for interest. Time resumes, in careful inches. Sable said, we train again when the wind softens. Pip blinks and memorizes the shape of safety. Astra preens a torn primary and files the edge against air. Morgan said, micro close-ups, injury log, behavior intact. The city glows with tired glass, a chorus that never sleeps. Vex tests a glide, then banks away from pride. The ridge holds its bronze secrets beneath thinning cloud. Sable said, debt remains, but we stand. Pip toddles 3 steps and stops where a fall once lived. Astra watches the scene where calm turns to lie. Morgan said, record the breath count, her cadence is true again. The ocean lists lullabies in long, even strokes. Nature is not kinder now. It is merely finished with this chapter. Shadows stretch like slow answers. Morgan said, golden hour, take the measure of scars. Astra shifts and tests, lift in a short, honest hop. Sable, said strength, returns where will lives. Pip peeps and leans into the warm side of stone. Vex lands at a safer distance, eyes tidy with restraint. The ridge keeps its king, outlined in patient firelight. Astra tears one final strip and plants it in Pip's future. Morgan said, we close the loop back to morning's vow. Sable nods once, a blessing that knows the cost. The cliff smells of kelp and wet rust and clean math. Pip drowses, belly round, fear thinned to a thread. Nature lets the page cool before turning it with wind. Evening thins the light to truth. Sable, said he sleeps now or he will not grow. Pip curls into the shallow scrape, a bright ember under feather dusk. Astra faces the dark and counts roots out of tomorrow. Morgan said, ambient only, let the night own the frame. Vex vanishes into the city's gray arteries, pride cooling to caution. The ridge glows, and then does not. Rex is a silhouette with mouths to keep. Sable said, we have neighbors, not monsters. The ocean slows its handwriting to long cursive lines. Astra lowers her head and threads breath through quiet. Pip sighs and the ledge becomes a cradle carved by storms. Nature folds the day and tucks it under a wing. Night arrives without argument and leaves a promise on the stone. Morgan said, we log survival, not victory. Astra rests, one eye open, on the seam of sky. Sable, said tomorrow, is earned the same way. Pip dreams of air he has not met, and his feet twitch with unwritten maps. Far off, the ridge listens to smaller hearts asking for warmth. Vex sleeps on a billboard crossbeam and does not chase ghosts. The city dims to a pulse that keeps predators honest. Astra tucks her beak and forgives the wind for being wind. Sable closes the ledger and leaves the totals unspoken. The ocean keeps time for a world that forgets clocks. Morgan said, cut on the breath, hold on the silence. Nature answers with a simple, absolute line. Life remains. Dawn arrives like a held breath finally spent. The cliff smells of kelp and iron, and the math of yesterday. Astra wakes before the light, and listens for debts in the wind. Sable said, "Today we choose flight, not fear." Pip stirs, a warm ember under down and grit. Morgan said, "Golden hour, minimal intrusion, witness only." The ocean rolls a slow drumbeat, patient and old. Vex perches far off, pride repaired but thin at the seams. And the ridge keeps its crown, but hunger speaks softer now. Rex does not appear, and the sky does not promise he won't. Sable said, "Teach him the ledge is a teacher, not a cage." Astra nods into the breeze and weighs the small lift it gives. Pip peeps, eager to taste distance without falling through it. Morgan said, "Every frame is a receipt for mercy." The day opens its hands, and nothing falls out. Training begins with a tremble and becomes a line. Astra hops from stone to air and back, carving a seam he can trust. Sable said, "Show him edges that hold." Pip totters to the rim and sniffs the language of height. Morgan said, "Short takes fixed focal, let the wind write." Vex glides closer and pretends he came for weather. The ocean throws glittering shivers up the cliff, applause sized for children. Astra drops a feather and Pip grips it like a future. Sable said, "Balance, then breath, then reach." The ridge remains a dark signature across light. No shadow grows larger, but memory keeps its talons in the mind. Morgan said, his cadence levels, "Mark the step." Pip peeps and leans into a small lift that forgives. Astra answers with a soft chirr that says, "Stay brave." By noon the wind writes bolder letters. Astra arcs out and returns with clean lines, a map folded into muscle. Sable said, "He learns what we survived to teach." Pip hops, then hovers a heartbeat, eyes wide with astonished pride. Morgan said, "Hold on the hover. The ledger changes here." Vex chooses decency for a minute and keeps his distance. The ocean flares brighter, and the city hums like a hive cooling. Far off, Rex appears as a quiet geometry against cloud. Sable does not tense, she counts mouths beyond the ridge and nods. Astra holds the air between fear and faith and invites Pip to hear it. Morgan said, "Two kings can starve on one hill, let none today." The cliff feels larger than morning's doubt. Pip squeaks, and the wind remembers to be kind for one breath. Afternoon thins to silver and puts a question on the table. Astra lifts for a final pass, not for prey, but for proof. Sable said, "Close the circle and leave it open." Pip watches and stores the sight like marrow. Morgan said, "One long take, let consequence breathe." Vex tilts his head and accepts the rules he can't rewrite. Rex holds on his thermal and does not descend. The ocean smooths to glass a mirror that remembers storms and forgives them. Astra rides a narrow seam and sets it gently back on stone. Sable said, "Tomorrow invites courage, not debt." Pip peeps once, a bright note with no tremor. The cliff seems suddenly wider than the sky. Morgan said, "We have what we came for, and what we didn't know we needed." Evening folds the day into a single line you can carry. Astra settles beside Pip and leaves her fear in the wind. Sable said, "What remains is enough." Morgan said, "Cut to black on breath, not music." Vex launches toward the city and does not look back. Rex turns down the ridge and vanishes into a duty that needs no witness. The ocean keeps time for everyone and favors no one. Pip tucks his head and dreams of edges that hold. Astra watches the seam of sky and forgives the storm its lesson. Sable closes her eyes, and the cliff becomes a quiet, patient book. Morgan breathes out, camera warm against his palm. Nature writes the final sentence without ink or mercy. Life remains, and for tonight, that is victory.